The silent cage. The galaxy believed Earth was gone. They believed humanity was locked away forever in the quarantine zone, a prison of stars surrounded by endless patrol drones and energy barriers. The Galactic Council made sure no ship could pass in or out, and for centuries they spoke of humans as a warning to others, a story told to young cadets. Do not rise against the Council, or you will share their fate. In truth, no one had seen a human for more than 500 years. Merchants who traded on the outer borders whispered about ruins and silence inside the zone. Explorers who came too close never returned, and so the galaxy settled into comfort, believing that the Terran problem had been solved forever. To most, humans were just a story from the past, a name carved into old war records. But one cold night in the Vasari sector, the silence broke. A council listening station detected a signal from inside the zone. At first, the officers thought it was interference, the kind of static that sometimes played tricks in deep space. But the sound repeated, again and again, like a pulse. When they ran it through their computers, their faces turned pale. The signal carried a pattern, an old encryption style, one last used by Terran fleets before the quarantine. It was not random noise. It was a message. News spread quickly through the Council's channels. Admirals called each other in private. Politicians demanded answers. But no answer made sense. If humans were gone, then who was sending messages from inside the zone? If they had died centuries ago, then what was moving in the dark? The Council dispatched a patrol ship to investigate, a sleek cruiser of the Vaynar Republic, one of their proud allies. The crew was nervous, their captain even more so. Every chart said the zone was sealed. Every law said entering it was forbidden. But orders were orders. The ship crept close to the edge of the invisible barrier, its engines humming low, its scanners alive. The barrier shimmered faintly like ripples on black water. The captain ordered the transmission repeated on open channels, hoping for nothing. What came back was a voice. It was not machine noise, not static, but a human voice speaking through layers of distortion. Quarantine is over, the voice said, flat and heavy. We are coming home. The crew froze, their blood ran cold. For years they had been told humanity was a legend, a mistake locked away. Now they were hearing them directly, alive, powerful, and certain. The captain recorded the message and sent it back to the Council with highest priority. No one dared to respond. On Central Station of the Galactic Council, the Great Chamber erupted in panic. Ambassadors shouted. Fleets were placed on alert. The council chair demanded silence, but none came. Some believed it was a trick. Others believed the Terrans had survived all these centuries and grown even stronger. For the first time in generations, the council felt fear. Meanwhile, on border, worlds near the zone, rumors spread like wildfire. Traders claimed they saw shadows moving inside the fog of stars. Massive shapes gliding without sound. Farmers on the outer colonies swore they saw ships unlike any they had ever known, black as void, with lights that burned like eyes. The council dismissed the stories as superstition, but the people knew better. Fear crawled into every corner of the galaxy. In a quiet chamber, an old historian whispered words that echoed louder than any speech. They tried to bury humanity, he said, staring at the signal logs. But the dead do not send messages. The first part of the story was unfolding. The galaxy had lived in comfort, believing the cage was sealed. But cages do not last forever. And in the silence of the quarantine zone, humanity had been waiting, building, and remembering. The council thought the Terrans were gone. They would soon learn they were wrong. The first breach. The message from the quarantine zone spread faster than light. Every council ship, every outpost, every leader now whispered the same question. What if humanity was not gone? What if the Terrans had survived? The council gathered, fleets along the borders, their ships shining with weapons, shields, and pride. They believed numbers would keep them safe, that their armadas could crush any threat. But deep inside their hearts, fear was already growing. Fear that the humans they once locked away had not been destroyed, only hidden, and fear that time had made them stronger. On the border of the Kelnar Empire, A fleet of 40 ships watched the zone carefully. Their sensors scanned the black void. Their weapons were armed. For 3 days nothing happened, only silence, but then on the 4th day the stars themselves seemed to move. A shadow bigger than their fleet shifted across the horizon. At first the captains thought it was an illusion, a sensor malfunction, but as the shape grew clearer, their hearts froze. It was a ship. Not a council ship. Not a design known to any empire. It was massive, black as night, its hull etched with scars of wars long past. The ship moved without sound, without fear, crossing the barrier as if it never existed. The quarantine zone was broken, and from that shadow came more. Dozens of ships, then hundreds, sliding into open space like predators leaving a dark lair. The council fleet hailed them, desperate. "Identify yourselves," one commander shouted across the channels. "You are violating council law. You are trespassing beyond forbidden borders." The only response was a single broadcast, a human voice, deep, steady, unshaken. "Quarantine is over. We are coming home." The words struck harder than any weapon. Every officer on the council ship stared in silence. For centuries they believed humans were lost, forgotten, gone. Now they were returning, and nothing could stop them. The Kelnar fleet panicked, half. The ships tried to retreat. Others stayed frozen in place, but the human ships did not fire. They did not chase. They simply advanced, slowly, with the weight of inevitability. The council ships scattered, their courage broken before the first battle. The humans did not even need to fight. Their presence was enough. When the news reached the council chamber, chaos erupted once again. Some leaders shouted for immediate war. Others demanded negotiations, but none could hide the truth. The quarantine was shattered. Humanity was free. The council chair, a proud Vaynar elder, slammed her claw against the table. "We caged them for a reason," she said, her voice trembling. "If they are free, the galaxy is in danger." Another delegate replied in anger, "No, the galaxy is in danger because of you, because you thought they could be caged forever." Meanwhile, the people across the stars began to whisper, if humans could survive 5 centuries in isolation, what did they become? If they could build ships that ignored barriers, what power did they now hold? On trade routes and border colonies, rumors spread like fire. Some said humans had mastered weapons that bent gravity. Others claimed their soldiers were no longer flesh and blood but something more. No story could be confirmed, but every story carried fear. On the edge of the quarantine zone, another council fleet gathered. This time from 3 different empires. Their orders were to stop the Terrans no matter the cost. The admirals prepared speeches of defiance, ready to warn humanity back into silence. But when the humans appeared, the speeches died in their throats. Because the human fleet was unlike anything they had seen. Ships so large they looked like drifting moons, engines glowing with blue fire. Every sensor screamed with impossible readings. The laws of physics bent around them. The council fleet sent demands, warnings, and threats. The humans answered with calm. "We are not here to threaten you," the message said, "but we will not be caged again." No shots were fired, not yet, but the breach was complete. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. The Terrans were back, walking freely into the stars once more, and as their ships spread into border space, one truth became clear. The galaxy was no longer the same. The balance of power was broken. The Council's control was shattered, and humanity was free to decide its destiny. The silent cage was gone. Now the galaxy faced something far worse. The first breach, deadly wrong. The Council in fear. The message of the first breach struck the galaxy like thunder. Every empire, every colony, every trader spoke of the same thing. Humans were back. They had crossed the walls that were never meant to be broken. And the Council had no plan. Inside the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, fear ruled the air. The hall was vast, a dome of silver and glass, filled with hundreds of alien delegates. Normally it echoed with order, with calm debates and endless speeches, but now it was chaos. Leaders shouted over one another. Claws slammed tables, tendrils waved in panic. Even the proudest empires looked afraid. A representative of the Kelnar Empire rose first, his scales glowing with anger. "Our fleet saw them," he roared. "Humans crossed the barrier as if it were nothing. Their ships walked through our defenses like shadows." Another voice, sharp and bitter, echoed. "The quarantine was meant to end them. How could they survive? Who allowed this?" The council chair, an old Vanar matriarch, tried to calm them, but her voice shook as much as theirs. "Order, we need order," she cried. "If the Terrans are free, we must act as one." Her words only fueled more shouting. Some demanded war, others begged for negotiation. A few whispered that perhaps the humans should be welcomed, not resisted. Fear grew heavier with each report. Spies brought rumors of human fleets moving in silence, of border colonies seeing shadows in the sky. Merchants swore they had seen warships larger than stations, black and silent with strange energy rippling around them. No one could confirm, but no one could deny. The galaxy had always lived with stories of human cruelty, human rage. Now those stories felt like prophecy. In the middle of the chamber, a frail historian spoke with trembling voice. "You think you caged them," he said, "but you gave them centuries to prepare, centuries to remember what was done to them." The room grew silent, if only for a breath. Then another delegate shouted in fury, "If they are preparing for war, then we must strike first." Admirals were summoned, strategies drafted in haste, but the numbers told a cruel story. Even combined, the Council's fleets had no guarantee of victory. The humans were unknown, their strength unmeasured, and unknown enemies are always the most dangerous. While the Council argued, panic spread across the outer colonies. Citizens began to evacuate. Worlds near the zone fearing invasion, markets crashed, trade slowed, ships refused to travel near Terran space. And through it all, the humans said nothing. They advanced slowly, taking no planets, firing no weapons, but their silence was worse than fire, because silence leaves room for fear to grow. One night, during an emergency session, the council chair received a transmission. It was marked as Terran, direct and undeniable. She stood before the chamber, her hands shaking as she read the words aloud. "We remember what was done to us, and we remember who watched," the message said. "We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not bow." The chamber fell into deathly quiet. For the first time in centuries, the most powerful rulers of the galaxy realized they were not in control. The humans were not asking, they were declaring. The galaxy would never be the same. In private corners, some leaders whispered their darkest fears. What if humans had outgrown war itself? What if they had become something more, something that could not be fought? Others whispered of surrender, of bending knee before a storm they could not survive. But no one dared speak these things in public. To admit fear was to admit weakness, and weakness in the council was a death sentence. Yet fear had already taken root. It showed in the way fleets pulled back from the border. It showed in the way soldiers spoke in hushed tones about the shadows in space. It showed in the way the council's voices cracked when they said the word Terran. The galaxy had mocked humanity once. They called them reckless, fragile, violent, unfit for the stars. But now, as humanity walked free from its cage, the galaxy no longer laughed. They trembled. And the council, the great power that ruled 1,000 worlds, trembled. Most of all, the council was meant to protect order. But now it was clear order was broken. Fear had replaced it. And the galaxy was waiting for what would come next. The silent cage was shattered. The first breach had come. Now the galaxy faced the truth. The council was no longer in control. Shadows of steel. The quarantine zone had fallen silent again. But the galaxy no longer trusted silence. Every shadow in the stars, every strange signal, every story carried the weight of fear. Merchants whispered of black ships drifting past their routes, silent as stone. Border colonies swore they saw entire suns dim when Terran fleets passed. The council denied the rumors, calling them lies, calling them superstition. But the people knew the truth. Humans were moving, and nothing could stop them on the world. Of Daraxis, a mining colony near the border, the first true sighting came. Workers in the fields looked up as a shadow swallowed the sky. It was not a storm. It was not a moon. It was a ship. A vessel so large it blotted out the sun, stretching from horizon to horizon. Engines hummed like thunder, a sound that made bones shake. The miners fell to their knees, some praying, some screaming, and then as quickly as it appeared, the ship slipped away, vanishing back into the stars. The report reached the council in less than a day. This time even the admirals could not deny it. The humans had built something greater than any empire could imagine. Ships of steel the size of worlds, weapons unknown, engines that bent space itself. They were no longer just fleets, they were shadows of steel. The council tried to send spies, small ships cloaked in darkness, drifting into Terran paths. None returned. Some sent fragments of images before vanishing. Giant war machines, walking inside the ships. Humans armored like walking fortresses. The images cut off in static, every agent lost. The council called them martyrs. But in truth they were only reminders that humans saw everything. In the great chamber, the arguments grew louder. "We must strike first," cried one warlord. "If we do not, they will destroy us." Another shouted back, "Strike with what? Our fleets run when their shadows appear." The council chair tried to calm them, but even her voice broke. The mighty leaders of the galaxy, once so proud, now argued like frightened children. And outside their chamber the people whispered. The galaxy no longer feared the council. They feared the humans. Stories spread of colonies swearing loyalty to Terrans without a single shot fired. Stories of traitors vanishing into the shadows, never seen again. Every story was different, but they all ended the same. Humanity was rising. On the border world of Karthus, a council envoy begged the Terrans for a meeting. The humans allowed it. The envoy boarded one of their ships, trembling as he walked its endless halls. Steel stretched, higher than towers, walls carved with strange symbols. Machines watched him with red eyes, silent and cold. And finally, at the heart of the ship, he met them. The humans. They wore armor black as void, their helmets glowing faintly with blue light. They moved with calm steps, not rushing, not fearing. The envoy tried to speak bravely, but his words shook. "We only wish to understand your purpose," he said. The human commander studied him for a long moment before answering. "We were caged," the voice said, "and we endured. We remembered every face, every voice, every empire that watched us suffer. We do not seek vengeance, but we do not forget." The envoy asked what they wanted. The answer was simple. "Freedom," the commander said, "and respect." The envoy returned alive but changed. His report to the council was brief and heavy. "They are not the humans we remember," he said. "They are stronger, colder, and united. If you fight them, you will lose." The chamber fell silent. Not one delegate could find words, because deep inside, they already knew it was true. In the weeks that followed, human fleets appeared across the border zones. They did not fire, they did not conquer. They only moved. Silent giants in the night, each appearance shattered courage more than any battle could. Worlds surrendered before the first shot was fired, and the galaxy whispered a new saying. "Do not go near the shadows of steel, or you will not return." The council's power was fading. The humans did not destroy it with fire. They destroyed it with fear. And fear spread faster than any war. The silent cage was gone. The first breach had passed. Now the galaxy stood in the age of shadows. Shadows of steel that walked across the stars. And every world knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The humans were. The first contact. The galaxy had lived in fear of shadows. Stories spread faster than truth. Whispers carried farther than facts. But sooner or later, someone had to speak to the humans directly. Someone had to step into the storm. The council debated for weeks, their chamber filled with panic and shouting. Every empire wanted someone else to take the risk. No delegate trusted the others. Finally, desperation forced a decision. They chose an envoy from the neutral Seraph Union, a race known for diplomacy and survival. If anyone could speak with the Terrans without being crushed, it was them. The envoy's ship approached the quarantine zone. It carried no weapons, No escort, only banners of peace shining across its hull. The closer it came, the darker space seemed to grow. Stars dimmed, the silence thickened, and then, out of the void, the shadows appeared. Dozens of Terran ships surrounded the envoy. Black hulls, glowing engines, silent movements that felt like predators circling prey. The envoy's heart pounded, but he forced himself to speak. "This is the Seraph Union. We come with peace. We request dialogue." For a long moment, no answer came. Then, one ship opened its gates. The envoy was allowed aboard. Inside the human vessel, the air felt heavy. Steel walls rose like cliffs. Lights pulsed like beating hearts. Every step echoed, reminding the envoy how small he was. Strange machines moved along the corridors, watching, always watching. Finally, he reached the chamber of command, and there, at last, he saw them, the humans. They stood tall, armored in black plates that shimmered faintly with blue light. Their helmets concealed their faces, but their presence alone demanded respect. The envoy bowed slightly, fighting the tremor in his voice. "I speak for the council," he said. "We seek to understand your purpose. Why have you returned from the zone? Why now?" The lead human stepped forward. His voice was calm, heavy, and sharp as a blade. "We were not destroyed," he said. "We endured for centuries. You thought the quarantine was our cage, but in truth it was our forge. You gave us silence, and in silence we became strong." The envoy swallowed. "And what is it you want from the galaxy?" he asked. The human answered without hesitation. "Respect," he said. "Justice. We do not seek war, but we will not kneel. We remember what was done, and who watched. We do not forget. We do not forgive." The envoy felt the weight of the words press against his chest. He dared one more question. "And if the council refuses?" The human commander's visor glowed brighter. "Then the galaxy will learn what it means to face us again," he said. "And this time the outcome will be different." The envoy was escorted back to his ship. He returned alive, but his eyes were haunted. His report to the council was short and final. "They are not the same humans you remember," he said. "They are stronger, colder, and they will not bow. If you fight them, you will lose." The chamber fell silent after his words. For the first time in centuries, no one shouted, no one argued, because deep inside, they all knew it was true. The humans had spoken, and their message was clear. Meanwhile, across the stars, colonies whispered in awe. Some prayed for Terran protection, others prayed to be spared. Already, small border empires bent their knees, pledging loyalty before a single battle was fought. The galaxy was shifting, not through fire, but through fear and choice. World by world, system by system. The council's grip weakened, and humanity's shadow spread wider. On a lonely station at the edge of council space, an officer looked out at the stars. He saw the faint glow of Terran engines passing like meteors in the dark, and he whispered words that spread like wildfire through soldiers and citizens alike. "They are not coming as invaders," he said. "They are coming as rulers." The first contact had been made. It was not filled with weapons, not filled with blood. It was filled with truth, and truth was far heavier than war. The silent cage was gone. The first breach had shattered the barrier. Now the first contact had come, and with it a new age. An age where every empire, every leader, every world had to face the same question. Would they stand against humanity, or would they bow before them? Chains shattered. The envoy's warning echoed through the council chamber. "They will not bow. If you fight them, you will lose." But still the council tried to cling to its pride. Still they whispered of war. Still they whispered of control. Yet outside their grand halls the galaxy was already changing. On the border worlds, banners of the council began to fall. Colonies that once paid tribute to alien empires now turned their eyes to the Terrans. Some sent messages of loyalty. Others sent simple pleas for protection. And in return humanity answered with silence. No threats, No promises, only their presence. Ships the size of cities hovering in the night sky. Shadows heavier than any. Speech, the chains of fear that once bound Earth had broken. Now it was the Council that wore those chains, and they could feel them tightening every day. On the world of Dravos Prime, a planet ruled by Council law for generations, the first open rebellion began. Crowds filled the streets shouting a name not spoken in centuries. Terrans, Terrans, Terrans. Council soldiers tried to stop them, but their own weapons shook in their hands. They had seen the shadows too. They had heard the voices. They were not willing to die for masters who trembled in their own chambers. When the Council sent warships to suppress the riots, they found something worse than defiance. They found humans. 3 ships appeared in the orbit of Dravos Prime, black hulls gleaming like blades. The Council fleet prepared to fight, but before they fired a single shot, the humans broadcast a single message. Stand down. And the Council fleet obeyed. Not because of weapons, not because of battle, but because they knew resistance was useless. The people of Dravos Prime cheered as the Council fled. They swore loyalty to the humans that very day, and across the stars other worlds followed. On the colony of Helvek, miners painted Terran symbols on their walls. On the moon of Vashra, farmers sent food shipments freely to Terran fleets. On trade stations long abandoned, refugees begged to join the Terran banner. Everywhere the Council once held power, it was fading like smoke. Inside the Council, panic grew deeper. Their fleets were strong, but their hearts were weak. They had numbers, but not courage. And against humanity, numbers meant nothing. One admiral admitted what others would not. Even if we gather every ship, every weapon, they will crush us in hours. Their technology is beyond us. Their will is unbreakable. We are already defeated. We just do not admit it. The chair tried to rally them, but her voice cracked. She spoke of treaties, of laws, of unity. But the delegates no longer listened. They were already thinking of their own survival, how to bend before the Terrans before it was too late. Meanwhile, humanity's message spread across the stars. It came not from speeches, not from threats, but from whispers carried on the mouths of envoys and the fear in soldiers' eyes. We are free, the humans said. We will not kneel again. We do not forgive, but we will protect those who stand with us. It was a promise and a warning, and the galaxy listened. The chains had been shattered. For centuries, humanity had been the prisoner, but now the Council felt the weight of those same chains on their own necks, and they knew they could not break free. In the void of space, a Terran fleet drifted past a Council outpost. The soldiers inside did not fire, they did not resist. They simply watched as the ships moved like mountains across the stars, and in that moment they understood. The future no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to humanity. The silent cage had fallen. The first breach had come. The first contact had shaken the galaxy. Now the chains of power were shattering, and every world, every empire, every soldier had to choose. Would they cling to the Council, or would they kneel before the Terrans? Most already knew the answer. The galaxy was bending, not to treaties, not to weapons, but to the return of a people who refused to stay caged. Humanity was free, and now they decided who else would be free. The dawn of fire. The galaxy stood at a breaking point. World after world slipped from the Council's grasp. Fleets deserted. Colonies swore loyalty to the Terrans. Even powerful empires bent their knees in secret. And yet, pride is a cruel master. The Council could not surrender. Not openly. Not without a final show of power. So they gathered. From every corner of the galaxy came ships, thousands upon thousands, filling the void with fire and steel. The greatest armada ever built. It was meant to be a wall against the humans, a wall of fire that no enemy could pass. The Council declared this would be their stand, their last chance to hold the galaxy together. But in their hearts, fear whispered another truth. They were not preparing for victory. They were preparing for survival. The Terran fleets arrived in silence. No speeches, no warnings, just shadows stretching across the stars. Ships so vast they made the Council's armada look like toys, engines. Burned like blue suns, weapons glowed with power no empire could name. And when the two forces faced each other, the galaxy held its breath. The Council fired first. Thousands of beams, missiles, and plasma storms lit up the void. The stars themselves seemed to tremble from the fury. But when the light faded, the Terran ships still stood. Their hulls shimmered, bending physics, bending reality. Weapons meant to split moons had done nothing. The Council fleets froze, horror gripping their hearts. Then humanity answered. One volley, one strike. Terran weapons tore through entire armadas like paper. Ships vanished in fire. Fleets shattered in moments. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. The humans did not need hours. They did not need days. In less than 1 hour, the greatest armada in galactic history was broken. The survivors fled, their formations crumbling. Commanders screamed for retreat. Soldiers threw down their weapons. And the Council, proud rulers of 1,000 worlds, bowed in silence. For the first time in living memory, they understood what true fear was. When the smoke cleared, a single Terran message filled every channel. It was not shouted. It was not angry. It was calm, heavy, and final. The galaxy caged us once, the voice said, but we endured. Now we are free, and we decide the future. The words echoed across every star system. On border colonies, people cheered. On council worlds, leaders wept. And in the silent corners of space, soldiers whispered that a new age had begun. From that day, the Council was no longer the center of power. The galaxy no longer bent to their laws. Instead, they bent to humanity. Not because of conquest, not because of destruction, but because humans had proven what no one else could. That even when caged, even when abandoned, they could rise again stronger than before. The dawn of fire was not the end. It was the beginning. Humanity did not burn the galaxy to ashes. They lit it with something new. Respect, fear, and an unshakable truth. The Terrans were no longer prisoners of the past. They were rulers of the future, and as their ships drifted back into the stars, leaving behind ruins and silence, the galaxy whispered words that would never be forgotten. The Council once feared nothing. Now they fear only humanity. The silent cage had broken. The first breach had come. The first contact had shaken the stars. The chains were shattered, and now in the dawn of fire, the age of humanity had begun.